Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, Republican, is ending his 2024 bid for the White House just days before the Iowa caucus, he announced Wednesday. "It's clear to me tonight that there isn't a path for me to win the nomination," Christie told the audience at the town hall in Windham, New Hampshire. The surprise move comes after Christie struggled to see gains in polling amid what many view as a scramble for second place between former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Former President Trump, meanwhile, has continued to dominate the GOP primary field. The former New Jersey governor's decision will be mainly viewed as a boon to Haley, who has seen particular momentum in New Hampshire, where Christie was also putting a lot of his campaign's energy. Christie had launched his campaign in June, going after Trump, pitching himself as an alternative to the former president. The former governor also ran for the Republican presidential nomination in 2016 and endorsed Trump after dropping out. In 2020, he worked with Trump's 2020 campaign on debate prep, but Christie has since been an outspoken critic of the former president. At the second GOP presidential debate in September, he called Trump out for not getting on the stage with his fellow competitors. He has bashed Trump over his ongoing legal battles and warned voters that Trump is not putting America first. Christie's campaign has said that the goal is to outlast his fellow Republican candidates, trying to run a Spartan campaign that brought in cash and kept its burn rate low. In his third fundraising quarter, Christie brought in nearly $3.8 million, trailing fellow GOP candidates including Haley and DeSantis, and well less than Trump. Christie had also sought to paint his competitors in the context of their relationship to Trump. Haley and DeSantis give me whiplash on where they stand with Donald Trump. They want to have it both ways and pretend that he's not the issue in this race, he said in November. Christie had said in September that he would leave the 2024 race if he didn't do well in the New Hampshire primary. Back in 2016, he ended his first White House bid just after finishing in a disappointing sixth place in the Granite States contest. So this is surprising for the reason that I at least expected Christie to stay in until New Hampshire. He was going to do horribly in Iowa and then bet it all on the neighboring states. But I think he saw the writing on the wall and didn't want a repeat of 2016, where not doing well in that state kind of killed his campaign, or at least killed any belief he had that he could reach a respective goal point. But this campaign was significant for two reasons. One, he really was the only person who consistently, from when he got in June up until the end, criticized Trump with almost no expletives, no censors, entirely went after him. And that was something I respected him for, because to run in a primary for a party where their cult leader doesn't even have to show up to debates, doesn't have to do anything other than just go to court, do a campaign rally every 2 weeks, and call him out for it is courageous. Even if you had Mark Levin talking about, this was a grievance campaign and he was upset that he didn't become attorney general and he had nowhere else to go. If that were the case, Christie could have easily primaried Trump back in 2020. It would have been the same result, except even a lower chance of winning. But he didn't. I can reasonably believe that he stayed with him, thinking that he would be a decent president. And then as the years passed, especially after he saw what happened on January 6th, he, like Pence and Liz Cheney, say, hey, I might agree with this person's policies, but I don't want to see a coup on the United States government because somebody lost an election. So it really was significant for that reason. And the other part of it is it shows, again, the continued dominance of Trump. That's why I said the Republicans are no longer Republicans. It's the Trump party, the TP, because people like Pence, people like Christie, really don't disagree with Trump on much when it comes to policy. Christie at one point, Trump is big on immigration laws. Christie at one point said that he wanted to track illegal immigrants like FedEx packages. So this is someone who clearly sides with him on many of the same things. Talked about cutting Social Security, which Trump proposed in his budget proposals. And that's why it's so interesting to watch these people who agree with him just go down, barely be able to register any percentage points. You could say it's because the crowd is too fielded, the field is too crowded. But I think it's a combination of that and the sort of all-encompassing desire the party has to just renominate Trump. There's a segment of people that are sick of him in that party, but I don't think it's enough to turn the tide in this primary. And I felt that way since this summer, that it's just been this stagnant race where all of these other candidates try to get involved, but they can't make a move. As far as who immediately benefits from this, it's probably Haley, as the article predicts. I think Christie might even endorse her before New Hampshire. That's my own little prediction. Um, but again, when you're talking about a 12% grappling that he had in one state, it's debatable whether that's going to be enough to, it might help her to win New Hampshire, but she still would have to contend with Trump in South Carolina, where he's got at last time I checked, over double digit lead on her in her own home state. Ironically enough, um, DeSantis is going to just keep floundering. I think he might actually be the next person to drop it. In fact, I'll say this: if DeSantis doesn't come in at least second place in Iowa, I think there's a good chance he'll get out of the race after that. Ramaswamy's just going to stick around because he's trying to promote books and hope he can get a cabinet position. But this might be the end of Christie as a political figure. This is a man who, people have talked about how DeSantis like missed his mark, his turn by like he should have waited until 2028, and then after Trump was out of the way, he could have at 48, 49 been the very likely front runner for the nomination, but he got in too early by getting in this race where everyone who is really ambitious and wants to run is waiting. I think you could say the same thing about Christie, but it's the reverse version where he waited too long. There were a lot of people who thought back in 2012, man, if Christie runs against Obama, he's gonna cream him, he's gonna stomp him. That moderate governor and that Republican governor in a blue state. Oh, if he's the nominee, Obama's gonna be a one-term president. And Christie wouldn't do it. He didn't want anything to do with running for president in 2012. He waited 4 years, and then Trump came along and crushed him and everybody else in that field. And he's not that old. He's like what, 61, 60. He could have theoretically waited until 2028, but I think again he saw the writing on the wall where he said, you know what, I can't get anywhere by just being a complete sycophant for this guy, like Cruz turned into, like Ramaswamy turned into, like Lindsey Graham turned into. So let me instead pretend, or excuse me, let me position myself as the person that just opposes him consistently, constantly. And it did, to his credit, make him stand out. He saw a polling surge after the first debate. We can't keep normalizing this conduct was one line I'll remember from this campaign for a long time. But it just wasn't enough. There simply are not enough people who are ardently against Trump in that primary to support someone whose main thing is I don't want Trump to be the nominee again. So his career might actually be over after this. He could run for president a third time in 28, 32, because who knows what the party will look like in 8 years. But he left office in New Jersey with a really low approval rating as governor. I think a run for senator is out of the question. Really, at this point, the only thing I can see him doing is probably writing another book and going on some talk show or other political show, and that's like the totality of what he'll be able to do. He's seemingly done as a political figure, which is really interesting because his whole thing was like, I'm bombastic and I'm the truth teller. That was how he positioned himself as far back as 2013, 14, and like Trump came along and just took the same exact thing but made it work in a much more effective way. So now there's like nowhere, there's no route left for him. But yeah, the campaign's main thing is that it'll be remembered for being the one campaign out of any of these that really went after Trump with no type of like, oh, but he's also my friend and he's my pal and I'm not going to say if I would support or endorse him. So Christie does deserve some credit for being able to do that. But the other part of it is, it's another example of how ever since 2015, Trump's hold on that party has just stayed and stayed. It's like gum on a shoe. It just won't come off. And Christie simply didn't have the support, political ability, or the timing to be able to change that. The only really contribution he can have now is to probably endorse Haley, and that's also up in the air.